Hi all, we're going to talk today about slopes of linear graphs. This is 10.3 and it's the last section of your unit 10. So when we look at slope is usually designated by an M and it means rise over run. Later in this unit, this section of the unit, we're going to learn about y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that means that if I have a point x1, y1, and a point x2, y2, I can just find the difference in the y's. So the rise is y2 minus y1, and the run is x2 minus x1. So that's what we're going to be learning today. Is first, how are we going to see it on the graph and know that it's the slope? And second, lastly, we'll learn how do we figure it out with just the math. All right. Well, first of all, I want to talk about positive slopes. So we have a number of positive slopes here. Now, one way of recognizing a positive slope is as x increases this way, so we're going this way, y increases this way, okay? So as we go this direction, y is increasing that way, okay? So that's like climbing a hill. We got to put some energy in it. We got to put some positive energy in it, okay? So that's a positive slope. So we can look at it here as we have a rise here and a run here. So we have a rise of 1, run of 3. So our slope would be the rise over run, which is a rise of 1 and a run of 3. So if we look at this other one, let's look at this one. So we have a rise of 1 and a run of 1. So the slope for this line would be 1 over 1, which is just 1. And then this slope here, if we're looking at it, let me use a different color here. So if we look at it here and here, we're rising 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're running 1 right there. So this slope has a rise of 5 and a run of 1, which makes it 5. So this is a very steep slope. This is a steep slope, getting to be quite the cliff there, versus this is a flatter slope. It's a fraction of the cliff slope, okay? So let's look at negative slopes now. Oh, one more thing. Before we do, I want to just have you glance at this formula, y equals mx plus b, because you'll see this a lot. And if we just keep looking at it, it'll be so simple for you in 8th grade or later on. All right. So this again, when we were doing sequences and patterns, was how it started. So this is how it starts, and that's how it changes. So if we look at how does this one start, it starts at the y-intercept. So the y-intercept here is a 5. So if we were to write this, I'm going to put starts and changes right here. Okay, so we have 5 is where it started, and when we do y equals, and we see that the slope for this one was 5, so we have 5x. So for this particular line, the equation for it was y equals 5x plus 5. So we just looked at the slope, how it changes. and how did it begin at the y-axis. So this one here, when we look at this, we have y equals, how does it change? It changes by 1. And then where does it start? It starts here at 2. So we're going to do a plus 2, at positive 2 there. So we don't usually write this 1 in front of here. So we're going to do x plus 2. This one we look, oh, here's how it starts. That's negative 6. And then we have y equals, and then it changes by 1/3. We usually don't write plus minus, so the equation for that line will be 1/3 x minus 6. And there you have it. Those would be the equations for these lines. Okay, so you'll see this a lot more in 8th grade or later, but I just want you to see it right now so it's super easy for you when you actually get tested upon it. Okay, so let's look at negative slopes. All right, so we have negative slopes. As we increase, it's going down. Okay, so that's what we want the coronavirus cases to do, is have a negative slope going down. Right now it's not, so that's why we are where we are. Okay, so anyway, this is riding your bike down a hill, or snowboarding down a hill, or skiing down the hill. So think of it that way, as a negative slope. As you go forward, you are going down, okay? So that would be a negative slope. So let's look at these rises and runs. So on this particular one, we are rising. Let's see, first we have to find our points. Okay, so that's where we're going, but we could go to here because these are the first places where the points where the grid lines cross where the line is. So that's how we choose to make our slope triangle. So we're going to go down -2, and then we're moving over 3. So this slope is -2 over 3. Now that's okay to write the negative up top, but it's better if we put it right in line with the fraction bar here. So 2 over 3, this is best. Okay, to put the negative in line with the fraction bar. We never put it in down below. That's a no-no. It's like a faux pas. Okay. All right, so that's a negative there. Oops, now you can't see it. I've been playing with it too much. There you go, negative. All right, so we have y equals, so how it's changing is -2/3 x, and then we look at where does it start? Oh, -4. So we do a plus -4, but we really don't write plus minus, so we're going to do -2/3 x minus 4. Okay, so that would be the equation of our line for that particular line. So that's this line right here. All right, now let's look at the rise and the run here. So this one is rising and running right here. So it rises 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So -4 and 1. So the slope here is -4 rise over 1. So remember, when we count, we start with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I've seen that some people are having trouble and they don't count this as 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is -4 for our slope. So when we look at what is the equation for the line, how does it start? Well, it starts way up here at 7. Okay, and how it changes is -4, so we're going to write -4x and then plus 7. So that would be the equation of this line. Okay, let's find the rise and run of this. Well, that's not hard. Let's look at that. So it's a, whoops, well, you could do that or you could do that. It's going to be the same. So rise -1, run 1, or run 1, rise -1. Okay, so when we do this, we have a rise of -1 over 1. And that's the same thing as a rise of -1 here and a run of a positive 1 here. So it's the same thing with the slope triangle. You just have to keep track that this is the rise and that's the run. So -1 divided by 1 is just -1. So when we look at the equation for this line, we come back. How does it start? Oh, right through the origin. So it starts at 0, and we have -1 is how it's changing. So we usually don't write the 1 here. We write the negative, though, and we don't write the 0. So this would just be y equals -x. And that would be the equation for that line. All right, so let's look at some special cases. So here's the slope 0. This is the slope that we like to have in a grocery parking lot because it's really hard to stop your cart as when you're trying to load your car up and your cart starts rolling away. That means that your slope is not 0, and it's a bummer. So in a grocery parking lot, we like having a flat slope or a slope of 0. So let's see what these equations are when we have a slope of 0. So if we look at this, we have a rise. Well, it's not rising. So our slope with our rise and our run, so the rise is 0. But look at this. It's going forever with the run. It's going to infinity and beyond, like Buzz Lightyear. But what is 0 times infinity, or 0 divided by infinity, or 0 times anything? Well, you're right. It is 0. So then we look at the points because now we know we have no slope. The slope is 0. It does have a slope. It is 0. But we have to look at, well, what are these points? And we need to find an equation for it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this equation here is 5, 3. And right here we have 0, 3. And here we have 1, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. So we have -6, 0. Whoops. Sorry. That's a little different. Okay, -6, 3. Look what they have in common. So no matter what the x was, look what the y was. So it looks like no matter what we do, y is always 3. How would we say y is always 3 in math? Well, we do have a way to say y is always 3 in math. We can say y equals 3. And that's the same thing as y is always 3 in math. Okay, so this one, let's see if that works for this line too. So here we have 3, 0, and this one is 0, 0, and here we have -4, 0. Well, what do they have all in common? Y is always 0. How do we write that? You guessed it. This is the line y equals 0. So strangely enough, the x-axis, this x-axis is, its equation is y equals 0. Now go figure that, okay? So when we go down to -1, we can guess that y goes through -1. So we can just say that's got to be y equals -1 then. If this goes through 0 and y is always 0 no matter what x is, and y equals 0 here, and this one y is always -1 no matter what we do, then y equals -1. So that's the equation for a 0 slope, a line with 0 slope. Find that y. Why, you may ask? Ha, ha, ha. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. So we have the other special case is the undefined case. Okay, this is when the line is vertical. So this line was horizontal and had a 0 slope. There we go. Oops, you can't see. So this one was a 0 slope for horizontal, and this one's vertical. The perpendicular line to a horizontal line is undefined. Well, let's look at what the slope is. So we have slope is m. Okay, so m, we're just rising to infinity and beyond. Thank you, Bud Lightyear. Okay, so, but what kind of run do we have? We don't have a run, it's 0. Oh no, there's a 0 in the denominator. Oh, what does that mean? Okay, who remembers what it means to have a 0 in the denominator? Okay, can we have a 0 in the denominator? No, this is the one where I told you if you have a 0 in the denominator, you cannot divide by 0. Okay, that creates this little vortex and you get sucked into the black hole of mathematics. So you cannot divide by 0. So this is undefined. Okay, so now let's look at, here we have our point here. We have 1, 2, 3 is the x. And let's see what the y is. The y is 0. How about this one? We have 3 is the x, and y is 3. Then we go to this one, and we have 3, and then this is 4, 5, so -5. So what do they all have in common? They have, no matter what y is, x is 3. So the equation for this one is x equals 3. X is always 3, no matter what y is. X is 3, and that's how we say it in math. X is equals 3. Okay, y can be whatever it wants to be, but x is going to be 3. Okay, so we can guess what this one is. If it goes through 0, this is going to be x equals 0. And isn't that funny? This is the y-axis, and it's defined by the equation x equals 0. Okay, here we look at it. We have -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. So this is x equals -7. So that's the equation for that line. All right, our last thing to do for this lesson. So we have the cat triangle. Well, my cats are being really nice, and they're not actually hanging out here bothering me while I'm actually giving my lesson. It would be kind of cute if you would. They're just hanging out beside me, though. Okay, so we have given triangle CAT, find the slopes of each side. So we have -4, 2. So we go to -4, 2, and that's our C. So we want to label it with a letter. And then -1, and we're going to go up to 5. So that's A. And this is 1, and then we're going to go down to -3 is T. So that's quite the tail, don't you think, for a cat triangle? Okay, so you can tell I'm getting giddy being alone. So we're going to draw a triangle here. Okay. Triangle here. And another triangle here. Okay. So we want to find the slopes of these triangles. And I have created something that I didn't realize I was going to create. I created a right triangle. Can you believe it? I am going to show you when we look at the slopes why that is a right angle right there. Okay, so we have, first we want to find the slope of this line here, AC. So we're going to do it by counting. So we're going to rise 1, run 1. So our slope AC equals 1, because a rise of 1 over a run of 1 is 1. Okay, this one, we are doing a rise of -1 run of 1, and our slope CT is -1 over 1, which is -1. And this slope here, we've got to find, it crosses right here. So we have a rise of right here. So we have a rise 1, 2, 3, 4, -4, and a run of 1. Okay, so the slope for AT then from this shape is -4 over 1, which is -4. Okay, so when we consolidate all these slopes, we have the first slope, AC, was 1. The second slope, CT, ended up -1. And the last slope, AT, was -4. So why was this one perpendicular to this one? So let's look at AC's 1 and CT's -1. Okay, so this is not something you're supposed to learn this year, I think. So let's look. So what makes it perpendicular? So you're just going to learn a little more than, you were supposed to in 7th grade, but it's all good for you. So a perpendicular line is the negative reciprocal of the other line. Okay, so let's look at a different slope that's not just like 1 and -1. So if I have 1/3, the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3 over 1, or 3. The negative reciprocal is -3. So if I had a slope of 1/3, the perpendicular slope is -3. So if I have MAC equals 1, its reciprocal, it's the same thing as 1 over 1 equals 1. So its reciprocal, the negative reciprocal, is just -1 over 1, which is -1. And that happens to be the slope of CT. So you can learn a lot by knowing the slope of a line and another line, and you can see that there's a right angle if one is a negative reciprocal, has a negative reciprocal slope of another line. So that was kind of cool. Now, I did see that this chapter did introduce the slope formula right at the end. They snuck it in there. So let's look at what that is. So if we go back to C being -4, 2, and A being -1, 5, and T is 1, -3, and we want to get the slopes. So we use this formula M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. If we start with this one and say this one's x1, this one's y1, this is x2, and this one's y2, then what we can do is plug it in. So we have MAC equals, and we're going to put the difference of the y's, 5 minus 2 over -1 minus a -4. And if you're worried, we'll talk about if you're worried about which one should be x2 and which one should be x1 in a moment. So 5 minus 2 is 3, and 1, and this becomes a plus because there's a negative. So 1 plus 4 is negative. Oh, no, that's just 3. Getting a little tired. Okay, so equals 1. So -1 plus 4 is +3, and that's 1. Okay, so let's say this was x2 and that was x1, and we're going to just try it out and see if it makes any difference. So if we had 2 minus 5 over -4 minus a -1, we end up with 2 minus 5 is -3, and -4 plus 1 is -3. Well, that's just 1. Okay, so are we going to get worried about how we name what point, if it's point 1 or 2? No, it doesn't matter, okay? Just don't mix up these. These are the things you don't mix up. Okay, so you don't mix up this, and you see how it's right over each other, and you don't mix up this. Got to keep these guys right over each other, because this is 1 point, this is C, and this is A, and this one's A, and this is C. So you don't want to mix those up, okay? So, but don't worry about naming which point is point 1 or 2. All right, so let's look at, well, what's the slope of AT? So we have slope of AT equals, and then we have 5 minus -3 over -1 minus 1. So that's going to give us 8, because this becomes a positive. 5 plus 3 is 8 over -2. So that gives us -4. All right. And then our slope, the last one is CT equals, and we're going to take 2 minus a -3 over -4 minus 1, and that gives us 2 plus 3 is 5, and -4 minus 1 is you have -$4 in the bank, and you spend one more dollar, you are in more debt. So it's -5. So that equals -1. So look at that. It's the same thing that we found before. Okay, so when we took it right off the graph, AC was 1, and it was here too. And measure the slope of AT, -4. We're there. The slope of CT is -1. Boom, we did it. Okay, well, you guys rock with that homework. I'm just so proud of you all for keeping up the hard work. So good job. Have a wonderful day and be well.